Hi, I'm Greg Crawford with the Friday News Dump, brought to you by World News Trust. 85 people, just 85 people, possess as much wealth as half the population of the planet, according to an Oxfam research paper entitled Working for the Few, Political Capture and Economic Inequality. 85 people versus 3 billion. That's insane. And some psychotic skidmark up in Canada, a guy named O'Leary, says publicly that he thinks that's just great. I don't think he's one of the 85, but you can damn sure betcha he wishes he was. That, in fact, was his point. The have-nots out in the cold press their runny noses up against the windows to watch the rich light cigars with C-notes and think, gee, I'm going to work my ass off so I can be one of those guys and make moralistic generalities about the hoi polloi like me. Problem is, not a goddamn word those sanctimonious assholes utter has a molecule of truth to it. Not to mention the fact that just working your ass off in no way guarantees success. There's entirely too much of, it's who you know or who you, well, you catch my drift. The deck is seriously stacked against even the hardest working sumbitch, and those who don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of don't have a snowball's chance in hell of getting within spitting distance of $100,000, let alone $1 million. $1 billion? Forget about it. Because with very few exceptions, the rich were very wise in their choice of parents. Or, with even fewer exceptions, they were lying, thieving sacks of the proverbial substance. Now, I'm sure there are a few wealthy people who came by their riches honestly, who are kind and generous and pay their workers a fair wage and do good things with their money. But they are vastly outnumbered by the likes of O'Leary, the Koch brothers, Jamie Dimon, Lloyd Blankfein, and all the rest that grew up guzzling Ayn Rand's poisonous Kool-Aid of pathological selfishness. They need to believe that they are job creators instead of the low-life scumbags that impoverish working Americans by outsourcing their jobs to third-world sweatshops, where the desperate people laboring in horrific conditions are as expendable as ants. They also believe that they are entitled to obscene bonuses even as workers' pensions funds are robbed and the company is run into the ground. They have to convince themselves that the skilled workers who make it possible for them to dine on endangered species are parasites, as Rand liked to call them, and that they themselves are intrinsically superior and not at all the real parasites in this social equation. They employ armies of sycophantic termites, also known as Congress, that devour the very foundations of democracy while they spew economic doublespeak to explain to lesser beings like ourselves why it makes perfect sense to pay subsidies to multinational corporations that post billions of dollars in profits every quarter. At the same time, they proclaim that the Americans whose jobs they stole do not deserve assistance from the federally administered trust funds that those same Americans paid into for their entire working lives. And they wonder why decent people hate their fucking guts. Jerks like Mitt Romney say, oh, you're against success. No, we're not against success. What we take issue with is the underhanded, dishonest, deceitful, and occasionally murderous way you go about achieving that success. But the worst insult in their lexicon, the one that they think really cuts to the bone, is, you're a socialist. Ooh! The knee-jerk reaction to that word is rooted in Americans' visceral fear of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The simpletons conflate communism with socialism. No one can dispute that the Russians gave socialism a pretty bad name. Okay, very bad name. But they also forget that all our closest allies are socialist countries. You see, socialism simply means that the government puts the best interest of the people ahead of the best interest of corporations. And in the corporate states of America, that's heresy. The wealthy own all the media outlets, so dissenting voices are never heard on network TV, and even cable news is circumspect in its critiques. You only have to look at how David Koch killed a PBS broadcast that was slightly critical of him to see the truth in that. Only the internet has allowed thoughtful people to be heard. Yes, we also have to listen to the witless drivel from mental defectives like Glenn Beck and Ted Nugent, but that's why they call it democracy. But now the net neutrality that made it all possible has taken a body blow from a few corrupt judges in Washington, D.C. who think Verizon should be able to control who says what to whom and how much it's going to cost them. We'll be keeping an eye on developments concerning this matter. But this disparity in sharing the wealth cannot continue. 85 people control as much wealth as the poorest 3 billion in the world. In what universe are those lopsided numbers equitable? Not this one. I've quoted Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis before, but this is a good time to repeat it. We can have democracy in this country, or we can have wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we cannot have both.